All right, let's now move on to the other big story that we are tracking this morning, where in an attempt to deal with the menace of fake news, this is what the Indian government has said. The Indian government has announced an amendment to the guidelines for the accreditation of journalists. Now, the government of India has proposed numerous penalties if journalists are found guilty of reporting or peddling fake news. And as per the amended guidelines, if the publication or telecast of fake news is confirmed, then the accreditation of the journalist will be suspended. This will be done for a period of 6 months. In the first violation, in the case of a second violation of peddling fake news, accreditation will be suspended for a period of 1 year, and a journalist accreditation will be cancelled permanently in case of a third violation. Now, the efforts have come as the governments around the world are taking steps to try and curb fake news. All right, so this of course is an important step which the government feels that it is essential, that it is necessary to try and cut down on fake news, considering the manner in which fake news is being peddled. One, to try and manipulate public sentiment. Secondly, to also whip up hatred within communities in the society. This is the menace of fake news. Fake news, some people may think, is a harmless thing, but the fact of the matter is it has real consequences in the real world. And this is the menace that the government, one hopes, is targeting and is not trying to stifle dissent and is not trying to stifle on uncomfortable questions which are asked. Also, what is important at this point of time is that the manner in which the government has decided to amend the guidelines for journalists, this will focus essentially only on print and television broadcast medium. This does not look at the social media, for instance, the WhatsApp groups, for instance, the internet, some of the websites which also peddle fake news. And to discuss more on this, we are joined in by our senior political affairs editor, Kartikeya Sharma. Kartikeya, good morning to you. This is an important step which has been taken by the government, but it will work only if it is implemented in the right spirit.
See, it's, first of all, the whole, the intent of this law is questionable. Why accredit journalists? There are thousands of other journalists who are not accredited to the government. Won't they be peddling fake news? How many journalists get accredited to the government? For example, state and central accreditation. If there are 100 journalists in Bhopal, or if there are 5,000 journalists in Delhi, only 1,000 or 2,000 people are accredited. Right. Young journalists are not accredited. There are many journalists who don't require accreditation. They are environmental reporters, they are civic reporters, they are crime reporters. The accreditation is not required. And on top of it, what about political leaders who indulge in fake news? What about people who are affiliated to political parties, run their websites, and they apply fake news? So the fake news is a phenomena. Fake news doesn't have to be used as a tool to target the mainstream media. Mainstream media in itself is very, very regulated. Mainstream media has laws. They have structures. And now you are saying that these guidelines will be for mainstream media. Right. What about political parties? What about political leaders? What about organizations, fake organizations, fake entities on social media? Most of the fake news which is there on social media is not coming from mainstream newspapers. Right. It is coming from anonymous sources. So you are actually penalizing those who are already being guided or already regulated under the main laws. Right.
Absolutely indeed. Kartikeya, do continue to stay on with this. Meanwhile, I'm told that senior journalist Vinod Sharma is also joining us. Good morning to you, Mr. Vinod Sharma.
Morning.
How do you view this particular change in the guidelines by the government? Do you suspect the intent behind it?
Well, I think that, seriously speaking, I think the government should reconsider this move. This is not the way to address the problem. The impression which is going out is that the government, after having applied adequate pressure on the newspaper owners, the tycoons in the industry, they are now trying to bring pressure to bear upon the working journalists. Please understand. Because earlier they were getting everything, whatever as per their desire, the coverage and whatever. But they perhaps think that they need to rein in the working journalist as well. Now, this is something which was tried earlier by Rajiv Gandhi when he tried to bring the anti-defamation bill. And there was a huge protest, and he had to withdraw that bill.
Right.
And finally, one could say that he was sensitive to public opinion. This government, I expect, also to be sensitive to public opinion, to the need for a genuinely free press in this country. And as Karthik just now said, that the fake news factories are not in the print medium or in the electronic medium, serious electronic medium. Actually, these factories are there on the social media, and some of them have found to be having links with even the ruling party, not to mention the opposition.
Right. Karthikeya, if I can, take that point to you. The fact of the matter is, this is something which is very true. A lot of the fake news is peddled on WhatsApp groups. A lot of the fake news is peddled on some of these websites which operate as social media. And they don't require any accreditation. They don't even require a license. It could be a bunch of about 10 people who could be paid and who could be putting out this fake news. Like, for instance, there has been action that has been taken in Karnataka over a fake news that was peddled by one website called Postcard. And we don't see any intent on the part of the government to try crack down on them.
Let me elaborate on the point made. You see, in 1987, when Rajiv Gandhi government was under tremendous pressure from because of the whole Bofors issue, and Arun Nehru, VP Singh had quit the government, and Allahabad elections were taking place where he was contesting against the Congress candidate VP Singh after Amitabh Bachchan had quit his seat. The issue was there was an anti-defamation law which was brought, and it created a great furor because it would have given draconian powers to the government to file defamation cases. Now this is 1987. Now today is 2018. So many years later, now you have guidelines saying that 6 months, a year, and completely blacklisted. Now, the moral questions. The moral questions there. Who are accredited journalists? Who are accredited journalists? The journalists who have been vetted, verified by Home Ministry. Basically, their location, their job, their ancestral lineage, and their background check has been done. That's what you require for accreditation.
Right.
And what is accreditation? Press Information Bureau. Or what is accreditation in state? State Press Information Bureau. Basically, people know who you are. And what does accreditation do? Please understand that. Accreditation allows you to go to Shastri Bhavan.
Okay.
Accreditation allows you to go to other bhavans. There's separate accreditation for defense, and there's a separate accreditation for sensitive ministries. But primarily, you have an accreditation which allows you to go to Parliament and security checks.
Okay.
Now, my question is, anyway, the impression has gone around in journalism that most of the civilian ministries have shut down. Earlier, I remember I would get a pass made and go to ministries. Now, that process is cumbersome.
Right.
I still remember that the PROs would allow you and come inside places like Vigyan Bhavan where Prime Minister was there. Now, it has become mandatory for you to have a PIP. It's like cutting the access off of the government. Anyway, the impression has gone around that the access has been cut off, The sort of access which journalists had is being cut off. Now, the informal conversation in the government was that the journalists should receive news, but they should not be part of decision-making.
Okay.
But now what is happening is fake news, which is in the realm of social media, as a rule is being applied on the mainstream media, which means that mainstream media is not regulated. No, not at all. Mainstream media is actually very, very regulated. For example, in mainstream media, you have Vishakha guidelines. In mainstream media, the issues can go to certain bodies. Mainstream media have self-corrective mechanism within the newsrooms.
Right.
Now, issue is, what do you want to regulate? You want to regulate content. Now, how do you want to regulate content? So you want to regulate content by penalizing. Okay, that works in law. But you are saying that your accreditation would be taken away. Suppose there is non-malified wrong news which has gone up. Generally, what happens? There is an apology, there is a correction. But there is no penalty that your access would be taken away. Basically, what the government is saying is that your access to visit government headquarters would be taken away. So fake news is only limited to government. Can't there be fake news which is non-government in nature? See, there are a lot of issues out here. And this has come without any consultative procedures. For example, why wasn't this known in public domain? Who was consulted? Is there a larger word on that? Were there 50 journalists who were consulted? Who are these journalists who have been consulted?
Right.
Why has it come suddenly like that? These are the issues.
Absolutely, indeed, Karthikeya. And also, Vinod Sharma, if I could give you the last word on this. How do you see this proceeding forward? Is the government doing the right thing? Can the government actually stop the menace of fake news with a change in the guidelines which only focuses and targets accredited journalists?
You see, these accreditation facilities have already been hugely truncated over the years. This accreditation is just an identity that establishes a person as a journalist, recognized by the government of India. Now, you see, the way to address this issue is to involve journalists, to create peer pressures on those who are engaging in fake news. And ironically, some of the IT cell chiefs of the ruling party have been found with their hand in the bin, involved in fake news,
But Vinod Sharma, if I could just interrupt, it is not necessary that it's only journalists who are indulging in fake news, because there could be people who've got nothing to do with journalism, who are peddling fake news on WhatsApp groups and on these websites. How does the government tackle that?
So that's what I'm saying, that the government, there is a need for an omnibus approach. But this piecemeal approach, that's why I said it's a signal for working journalists. Less of an attempt to curb fake news. Because fake news is coming from all directions.
Right.
Including people associated with the ruling party. I'm sorry, but this is a fact. Also people associated at times with the opposition. I'm sorry, but it's a fact. So, you see, journalists in the print media are not engaging in any kind of fake news. You can disagree with their analysis, you can disagree with their content, but in terms of the information that they are conveying, you can't say that they are conveying fake information. For instance, the two stories which have been mentioned that were published in Indian Express, one relating to the government circular asking ministers and other departments not to associate with the celebration, 60th celebration of the arrival of the Dalai Lama. And the other story relating to a Dalit boy who rode around on a horse in Gujarat, who was murdered by some higher caste people. Now, both these stories are based on documents. So how do you call them fake?
Right. So this of course...
One story about the boy on the horse is backed by an FIR registered by the police, and comments by the Superintendent of Police, and the other is based on a government's own circular. So what I'm saying is that this is nothing but a signal to the working journalists. Please get that right.
Right.
It's a
Absolutely indeed, Vinod Sharma. This of course is something which the government will have to look at. Thank you very much indeed to both Vinod Sharma and to Kartikeya Sharma for joining us on the broadcast. This is something which the Information and Broadcasting Minister Smriti Irani will have to take a hard re-look at, because it is not the mainstream journalists who are guilty only of peddling fake news. Fake news is peddled on WhatsApp groups, on many of these Facebook groups, on many of these websites which pander to certain interests to try and drive an agenda. And it is perhaps these agencies which need to be looked at if the menace of Facebook needs to be dealt with. This, we hope, is being heard by the people in the corridors of power, and Smriti Irani will take a hard look as to how fake news in fact needs to be dealt with.